We're back with another edition of the Superstars podcast where we chatted up with the best in business, real estate, and life. My name is Chad Levine. I'm your host. I'm a superstar lender, superstar coach, and I'm here with another mega agent. I got a real good affinity for this guy. We are true tried and blue Philly here, and we're actually shooting live from one of the spots in his neighborhood. I've got Russell Kuback from Opus Elite Real Estate. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. Thanks for coming down. It's good to see you, make it down our way. I know we usually cross paths in Jersey or up in Newtown. Welcome to Bridesburg.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know where we're shooting from because it tells a lot about you and the things you do in your everyday business practices, but also spotlights the area that we do a lot of business in, which is Philadelphia, and which is the greatest. I shouldn't even say greatest. It is coined as the city of neighborhoods. Philadelphia is known for that.
Yes, it is. But, in a lot of cases, those neighborhoods have really changed from when that slogan was put together. There's still plenty of neighborhoods, but, I think we have a lot of the same effects that like New York or LA have. Where, you're starting to run into people that go, hey, I live in Philadelphia, I live in this neighborhood, I live in that, and they're from somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
Which isn't a bad thing because usually when that happens, you start to get, an uptick in bars, eateries, coffee shops like this.
Right.
A lot of cultural contributions. So it's not a bad thing, and it does a lot of good things for property value.
Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into all of that because you've seen the evolution of the neighborhoods, the real estate, and just the city overall. But let's talk a little bit about where we're located and why is this place so important to you?
So Bridesburg is the Forgotten River Ward. So you've got Fishtown, which everybody seems to know in Philadelphia. It is the epicenter of call it gentrification, development, whatever you want to label it as. It was built up, and when that stopped and there was no more room or people got priced out, they started to go to Port Richmond, which was the next one over. In Port Richmond, you're bordered against Fishtown and Kensington, and you got a lot of development there. You got a lot of new bars, new eateries, a lot of good walking spots to go to, a lot of parks, a lot of development. We're a little more hidden. There's one way in, one way out here, and they call it the island. I love it because I grew up in Kensington. And this neighborhood reminds me of old school Kensington, where it was a tight-knit community. Everybody knew you or knew where you lived or who you were friends with or who your family was. And frankly, if you did something wrong as a kid, you felt it the whole walk home, and then when you got home, you felt it again. So, that's kind of how, we got kept in check, and, people looked out for one another. It's not that outdated or that old school in Bridesburg, but if something's going wrong or something's happening, the whole community steps up, and, we have these Bridesburg Facebook groups that are essentially the lifeline. So if something's going on, forget the Citizen app. It's going to be on the Facebook app or the Facebook group long before it even hits Citizen. So, everybody kind of knows everybody's business, for better or for worse. But it protects each other.
So when we talk about Bridesburg, and it's a picture of other neighborhoods in Philadelphia, for people that don't know, that aren't from Philadelphia, they're almost their own communities within the bigger Philadelphia community, right?
Yes.
And that's really so it has its own culture, it has its own religious influence, it has its own, schools. Does it have its own schools here as well?
Yeah. We have, we have the Catholic school around the corner that has changed names 10 times. I'm kidding. It's not that many. We have Bridesburg Elementary across the street, which is a pretty decent school. It's still very, very much a Polish community.
Polish is predominant. Okay.
But for me, I don't look at that. I look at it as, this is a lot of Bridesburg originals and then a lot of Bridesburg transplants, which, it's half Bridesburg originals and then half Kensington transplants.
Got it.
We moved here, because of how close it was to where we grew up. So,
got it.
It had a lot of the same things that we were comfortable with, and, the Kenzos anyway will make the jokes like, that's a Bridesburg original, and I'm a Kenzo transplant.
Right.
Which is, as you know, Sheena Dudick, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, she is a Bridesburg original, and I'm the Kensington transplant. So that's why that dynamic works so well here. We know pretty much everybody. People know us. And, we can connect with everybody because of that. We walk into a house, people see, whether they're a Kensington transplant or, a Bridesburg original, there's some commonality, there's some familiarity.
And I was going to say, so the fact that it is its own community and then it is close-knit and everyone does know each other, how do you and Sheena utilize that from a business standpoint to help you grow your own business?
So Bridesburg is very, very tough from a business standpoint because, you've got Port Richmond, right next door to us, and they have at any given time 200 to 300 homes in that zip code. And Kensington shares a portion of the 19134 zip code, but that's a lot of inventory. Whereas at Bridesburg, at any given time, you're give or take 20 homes. So, and Bridesburg, nobody wants to leave, so it's very tough, to come here and plan on doing business.
Interesting.
But we don't look at it that way. We don't treat this neighborhood as something transactional. If we get business, great. There are other realtors that have this is part of their footprint. But we don't look at it as transactional. We look at it as this is our community. What can we do? And if we get business as a result of it, great. But that's not what we're leading with. And I know that kind of sounds salesman-like or cookie cutter, but it's genuine. Her and I have an authenticity to us, and I don't think that that's widespread or common in this industry.
So what are some of the things, knowing the community well, what are the things that you guys do? So we won't call it business related, even though it's indirectly related. There's nothing, by the way, because this is also a business emphasized podcast, I think there's something to be said about the fact that there's nothing wrong with both of them going hand in hand. You can be an active member in your community, be authentically involved, and then also reap the benefits, because part of the reason you're here is because you want to work and live here.
Sure.
Right? So what are the things that you and Sheena do together, or even you individually, within the community? Maybe some examples of events or sponsorships, things like that maybe have benefited the community, but also your business.
So, we've organized neighborhood cleanups. You see the coffee sleeves here.
Yeah, show that. That's cool, actually. Maybe hold that up a little.
We're familiar with the owners, and we have a relationship with the owners. Of I Need Coffee.
That's
here
cool.
in Bridesburg.
So you're on every coffee sleeve.
I am on every coffee sleeve, and
that's a cool idea.
Thank God, they were able to shrink my head.
Have you seen a lot of activity from that?
We get a lot of people or
is it more just recognition?
It's more recognition.
Right.
We get a lot of people that have sent us pictures of it, and people who don't live in the community that will come over to the rec center when their kids are playing soccer or some other sport. They'll stop here.
That's cool.
And I'll get hey, look, you're on my coffee. Yeah, I know. Thanks for telling me you're coming to the neighborhood. But we had the same thing. We had a billboard down the street from here, and it was a lot of that too. It was more or less letting the neighborhood know we're here, and it was a lot of we've been lucky with the Eagles recently, and when they won the Super Bowl or playoff games, our Frankfurt and Cottman Broad Street is Richmond and Orthodox, which is right down the street. So that's mobbed whenever the Eagles or any other sports teams win. But when we go to them, it's, you're the guy on the billboard, or we haven't had it yet, or I'm sure it'll be, you're the guy on the coffee sleeve. Yeah,
but that's a point I want to stick to for a minute. So one of the most difficult things as a realtor, as it is in any other business, is to figure out what marketing methods work, right? And it seems like what you're doing is an all-out, everything you can to be as visible as you can, right? So the billboards, the coffee sleeves, is there anything else? The events themselves, community-wide events. What else are you doing?
We've recently had, there's a Bridesburg Community Partners, there's the Riverfront North that are both organizations that put events on in the community. I'm on the board with the, Friends of Borsky Park. We have the Borski Bash coming up, so that's something that Sheena and I will sponsor, and we are sponsoring. It'll be live music, food trucks, events, stuff for kids, and it's just about shaking hands and visibility.
Sure.
Stuff like that. Like if anything comes from it, great. But for us, it's about being out and like seeing people, and we don't want to treat the neighborhood as transactional because there are already plenty of agents that will do that to this community.
Got it. That makes sense.
And that's not something that we want to do.
Got it. I mean,
you can read that. Like
the overall goal, I mean, from a business standpoint, though, is the hopes that that because you're so present and because you're so connected, that you will earn their trust in the ability to sell when that happens.
I mean, look, if you can post anything you want on Facebook, nobody or social media, and nobody's going to know who you are.
Right.
You get out, you start talking to people.
Right.
People get a better sense of what your character is, and I believe in being the same person all the time.
Right.
And I say that to clients for good, better or worse.
Right.
I'm the same guy all the time.
Right.
So there's an authenticity that I like to bring to the table, and I'm not going to be some used car salesman on Facebook or in person.
Right.
We're going to talk. We're going to talk. You're going to feel that. You're going to love me. You're going to hate me, but you're going to know that that's where I stand and this is who I am.
That makes sense. So I guess the other the community involvement, the community engagement, is this probably the most involved community you're in overall?
For the most part, yes, I would say so. We've done some charitable stuff. Like over the past couple of years, Sheena and I have done some volunteer or some donations to people that are falling on hard times. Coat drives, shoe drives, or taking care of their Christmas needs. Because a death in a family, or people down on the luck monetarily, whatever the case may be. We do that stuff, and the only time it's ever talked about is here. We're not the people that are gonna do all this stuff and post it for social media likes.
Right.
Because if you're doing that, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting though, because what you're doing is pretty much old school
guerrilla marketing.
From a business. Yeah. And it's something that it's probably is a lost art, I would say. And maybe it's because technology has made some of us lazier. I don't know. I
Look,
think
and a lot of it is thankless, but we sleep better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting, and I think it's one of the things with Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia is a historic city, right? And while it's nice to see change and to see values go up, you don't want to see other things change, right?
Correct.
And I think having people that live and work here and have the same values and have the same love for community and the same love for each other really helps to make what you do more of an authentic and real thing as opposed to just marketing, right? Or just business or anything like that. So overall, Bridesburg in general, what have you seen in terms of the changes now and then the future? And do you see this as an area that's gentrifying? Do you see this as an area that maybe is purposely trying to maintain its identity? Like, where do you see Bridesburg overall?
So Bridesburg has a very strong community, identity. I referenced it earlier, where it's very similar to what Kensington used to be.
Right.
I am starting to see the changes. You're starting to, like, for example, you come into here, I need coffee, and you come in the morning, and it's such a diverse crowd.
Right.
People who don't live here, but they come here because they've got good coffee, good drinks, good food, and it's a pretty good atmosphere. If you really want to be entertained and, see what this, see the good, bad, and different, whatever your opinion is, come to a Bridesburg zoning meeting. And it is like the verbal equivalent of torches and pitchforks, like just out en masse. And, I don't know if you'd get that somewhere else,
right.
But the people showing up, the zoning board, like we have people that in this community that sit on our zoning board that really care about what's coming.
Yeah.
We just had a project that was shot down because it would have really changed the identity and the landscape, of this community. It was a massive apartment complex where the person came in, the developer, had no idea what the community was. He just went, oh, it's a riverboard. It's right next to Fishtown or Port Richmond. It's right there off of 95. Let me put it here. Like I said earlier, we really don't have that many reasons to come to Bridesburg. Like we have a couple bars, we have a couple pizza places, we have, I Need Coffee. But if you don't know somebody here, if you don't live here, it's not necessarily a destination, whereas like Port Richmond or, Fishtown, where they have all these great walkable, streets with bars, eateries, etc. That project would have changed the landscape here.
Interesting.
And zoning, it showed up. We don't really have like our infrastructure wouldn't have been able to facilitate it.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of problems with the traffic here already. We had a couple warehouses that opened up. Trucking, has been a bit of a problem, especially when, you're dropping your kids off in the morning. There's a lot of congestion. So that kind of development and, high rise with the parking problems, which is a major issue when you go to these zoning meetings, it really would have created some problems. But you've seen some developers, the downtown developers come in and put up some structure, some condos, some apartments. So you're starting to see the tip of it.
Right.
People are paying attention because Fishtown is so overdeveloped. A lot of people are priced out. Port Richmond, it's block by block. People are still going there, but again, like if you're a developer or a flipper or something like that, if you're going there, you're most likely going to be background noise because there's so much inventory.
Right.
So what's the next step? Let me go a little further out.
Right.
And they come here and look, Brownsburg's got fight. If they don't like the idea, they're going to step up and they're going to push back, and that's part of why I love this community.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so outside of the grassroots and community volunteer stuff you do, what are some of the other things you do to grow your business?
I mean, look, everybody's on social media. I hated it for the longest time. Couldn't stand it. And now
Why? Curious.
Because I always looked at it when I first got into real estate as every social media agent is, they were portraying it as they were acting like used car salesmen. And that ain't me. So I would see this cringe stuff, and I sat in a branding meeting yesterday, and I anytime I get the opportunity to talk about this stuff, I just let's go.
Yeah.
For me, it still happens, and you can see it. People don't realize that you can be genuine doing this stuff.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people aren't genuine
Sure.
with it. We had the whole phase where everybody was doing TikTok dances and all that stuff. Can you picture me doing TikTok dances?
Yeah, I think I actually tried to coin one for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the Russell Hustle. I think I stared right through you. And you were the only one laughing in the room because the rest of the people in the room knew everything about me. That guy's not going to do it. So I actually had such I partnered with Sheena on a lot of things, a lot of projects, and she kicked me in the ass and was like, you need to get past this fear or this animosity towards this social media stuff.
Where's that all coming from? Are you just a tough guy from a Philly neighborhood or what?
I'm very stoic. I don't I don't want to come across as anything other than who I am. So I'm not going to be the person in your Facebook comments the moment somebody smells a real estate lead coming on and going, I'd love to help you with your real estate needs. Call me to buy, sell, and invest. Here's my phone number. And then 14 other comments below it are the exact same thing. Yeah. So that's what I saw, and that's what I believed. And, I had to unlearn that. Yeah. I had to figure out that, that's not it. I started doing videos. Right. And the only time where, I'm very critical of the videos that I do. Most of them are in my truck because that's where I have the time. Right. And I go to the office or whatever, there's a lot of background noise, so I do that, and that's something I'm doing recently. And I get a lot of people that are texting me going, oh, do you do anything outside of your truck? Yeah, sometimes, but I'll be critical of lighting or anything like that, or my forehead will look too big because God knows that I was blessed with a lot of real estate above my shoulders. So it's interesting. So a lot of the things you saw on social media were turning you off, mainly because it was a prejudice or I call it a prejudged notion that a lot of those people were not being authentic. But I'm guessing now you found you can utilize the same platform to be authentic. Yes. So talk to me about that. What are you doing in terms of social media and digital media to showcase that you are authentic, or what is authentic Russ? What is that? So it's what you need to hear versus what you want to hear.
Okay.
And in this industry, this business, like you'll see realtors where they'll be on vacation and they can't wait to post. Even on vacation, I'm hard at work for your deal. Like, yo, man, go enjoy your vacation.
Right.
Like, post pictures of your kids, your family, what you're doing.
Right.
Like, we get it. You're a real estate agent.
Right.
But, like, I've never thought, like, in any of the properties that I've bought, oh, man, I'm going to use this realtor because he works on vacation.
Right.
I don't care about that.
Right.
I want to know who I'm dealing with is going to go to bat for me, is not going to sell me down the river for a commission.
Right.
And not act in my best interest, So for me, it's always about that. Like I want you to have an idea where I stand, and I'm not commission first, and a lot of people are, and a lot of people get bad reputations because of that. So for me, I'm always in your best interest, telling you what you want to hear or what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and I can't let my reputation suffer because I hurt your feelings.
Right.
I don't care if I hurt your feelings,
Right.
as long as I don't hurt your pocket.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question is, like, give an example, but obviously you did. And so it's more or less when you find things that you think can potentially hurt a client, to verbalize those and not be afraid to verbalize those in a fear that maybe the deal will fall apart. Like that kind of a thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I had one recently where, I knew the other agent, and, it was a property that was maybe a little distressed, not the worst case, and it was sitting for a little bit. And somebody came in and they gave the deal, and the numbers were a stretch. They asked for a lot of seller's assist. So the conversation was no problem, just letting you know that we really can't do much beyond this because we're kind of maxing out.
Sure.
And we set the tone, like, from the gate. And, they came back with a reply to inspection that was just over the top. And I went to the client. I went, look, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. This is absurd.
Yeah.
This is an attempt to see that, whether or not you'll balk.
Right.
And they're trying to get you to cave.
Right.
I went, here's the next step. Before even telling them about what the reply is, it's here's how we're going to reintroduce it to the market. And then I explained to them, I went, here's your options. I just gave you how we reintroduce it to the market, and, or we could try to renegotiate. Went back to them. They didn't want to budge. Said, hey, look, thank you for the offer. We're going to move on. And they, I remember talking to them, and, like, the tone of their voice was like, I can't believe this happened. How is this conversation going on? Like, I would have got paid, if I would have pushed them to move forward. I would have, I would have lost the deal either way. I'm good.
Right.
Because I'm not jeopardizing my reputation. I'm not jeopardizing my character. It just was not in their best interest. And ultimately, we got it resolved because, nobody wants to see a deal fall apart, but nobody wants to be taken advantage of.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think the whole mindset of transactional as opposed to relationship based is something to be said, and people really struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because I think when you can smell desperation on breath, and when you have other things involved that are financial gain for other parties, some people will try and overlook things that are, ethical, as well as maybe your fiduciary duty as a realtor, right?
Sure.
And it's tough. It's a balance of yin and yang. I think a lot of people fight that good battle, but
I think a lot of people really struggle with hard conversations too.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Before I was in real estate, I think I mentioned the last time you and I spoke, I was in the beer business.
Yeah.
And I was in a union atmosphere, and I had, I started out entry level, got my CDL at 21. I was throwing kegs and going to school at night.
Yeah.
Worked my way into management, and then ultimately my last post, I was the youngest director, of operations in the beer industry, at least in the East Coast of the region. And I had a lot of guys coming to me. You were almost like a surrogate father. They would tell you their personal problems. They would tell you their work-related problems. You'd get a lot of pushback, especially in a union setting.
Yeah,
and if you are a doormat and you are not comfortable having hard conversations, you're going to get walked on, and you're going to fail miserably. So I had a lot of really good mentors that helped me with that, transitioning from, the union guy into the managerial guy. And, I really started to excel at it.
So do you think is one of your strong suits the ability to separate emotion from business?
100%.
Yeah.
Nothing I do, in most cases, even personal. I don't let emotion come into play.
Yeah.
I mean, look, my kids are a little differently. I'm
Sure.
a sucker for them,
Sure.
but beyond that, like everything is calculated.
Yeah, interesting. So where's your head at with this business? What are you learning, like, in terms of your growth as an agent, but then also, have you kind of figured out a rhythm or a system that helps you get numbers that you want to achieve?
So, I mean, look, I think everybody has their peaks and valleys in this
Sure.
business. When the momentum's going, great. But you need to stay present.
Yeah.
You need to stay top of mind. That's just the only way that you're going to continue that momentum. I think and I fall victim of it too. Where I won't be as consistent, and then I'll overthink it and go, I'm falling behind because I haven't had a conversation in a day.
Right.
You don't want to let that happen for too long. So for me, it's more or less like, how many conversations can I have? Whether it be email, whether it be text messages, whether I'm sending out mailers, whether it be Phillies calendars, whatever the case may be, or even interactions from social media posts, stuff like that. It's consistency, getting your systems down or your systems in play. And now I really see the strength and the growth coming from social media.
Yeah. Oh man, that Sheena Dudick was right, huh?
Yes. Yeah. I'd be panhandling out front if it wasn't for her. But we've got into the next step, and I'm starting to get into the investing end of it. After a while, and I had rentals before, and I kind of overthought it. Put it to bed, sold the properties, and now I'm getting back into it. So now I'm hitting that from both ends. I'm starting to build those relationships with contractors, with clean out guys that have ultimately created referral relationships.
Right.
I refer them, they refer me,
right.
And I've gotten business from that. So
right.
It's, who do I build my relationships with?
Right.
And I never believed in networking. Like I looked at this not only as hey, look, everybody's a used car salesman when I first got into it, but I also looked at everybody as competition. And, that saying that is thrown out a little bit more than I saw initially, collaboration over competition. Mm-hmm. If you don't buy into that, you're really hurting yourself.
Well, it seems to me like with you have to buy into something to do it, period.
Yes.
And
everybody says, what's your why?
Yeah.
My why is my daughter starts college this year.
So you're hoping for higher numbers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, where's she going to go?
She committed to Westchester.
Nice. Is that education?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, that's what they're known for.
Yeah, I mean, look, she is every bit of me that is fierce and not going to be a doormat or allow you to, take advantage of her. But she's way smarter than I'll ever be.
Oh, yeah. So I'm curious because I have younger kids, and my son is 10 years from college. And
so is mine. I have a 9-year-old.
So. But it's freaking me out because I'm like, that's not that far.
No.
So like at the cost of college now, right? You had to have been saving when you were 20 just to like get to there. It's wild.
I forgot that, for some reason, I just forgot that Westchester wasn't a true state school.
Yeah, yeah.
And when she sent me the invoice, I was just like, oh my God. Thank God I got back into the investing end in the right time.
Yeah. So it's funny. When did you realize that this could be an actual career for you? Because a lot of people in real estate will have one foot in and one foot out.
That's never been my type. That's never been my personality.
Yeah.
When I was in the beer business, I was at one of the larger wholesalers on the East Coast. I got recruited from the larger wholesaler on the East Coast to maybe the larger for the Miller brands. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going over there, and there was a lot of family politics and ownership that really interfered with the business processes. And it was, I was working all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a thankless job, whereas where I came from, they actually appreciated their employees. And I started to get burned out, and I got to figure something else out.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I was half in and half out of whatever I chose to do next, I was going to fail.
That's your,
because I was at, and I learned, the hard way. So when I was in the beer business, I had an insurance business on the side. Just passive stuff I was doing, and I used that as a parachute to get out of the beer business.
Interesting.
But then I
What are
started.
you doing, like property and casualty?
I'm licensed in everything.
Cool.
I'm a licensed junkie. You know,
Yeah.
if I can be qualified to do something, I'm gonna get everything that I can.
Interesting.
So next is obviously broker license. I started to get into that before, but I got a little bit too busy.
Interesting.
But I ended up.
You still have the renewals?
I
from
do.
from the insurance?
I do.
I like that.
Look, it's a price point thing, so
Yeah.
they go down a little bit
Yeah.
every year because people shop it.
Yeah.
And prices are going up.
But they pay dividends.
They do pay dividends.
Yeah.
But I was advertising, my name, like I was calling it the Kuback Group, which is all it was just me, and I was doing real estate and insurance. But nobody knew where I was putting my, the most of my time, where my expertise was, and it was confusing for people. So I kind of pulled out of advertising the insurance, which I still have, but then I just focused on real estate, and I just kept the name, and that's kind of where like Sheena and I really started to get tight. I was trying to recruit her. I had no business running a team. And look, you see everybody now with they work with somebody. They call it a team. Everybody comes in, they want to roll a team out. And if it works, great. But you see a lot of people where it's like, I know that I had no business running a team. Why are you running a team?
Yeah.
Focus on yourself. And
What do you think? I want your take on this. So I'm going to talk team and then I want to talk company because you've worked in different levels of corporate and then now you're with a different brokerage and you've been with other brokerages before. What's your interpretation of a good team leader? What's good? What's bad? Who's someone that shouldn't be running a team? I'm curious to get your perspective on all that stuff.
I mean, look, if you're struggling in business yourself, you shouldn't be running a team.
Yeah.
You should be focusing on building your brand, your business, and then when you're too busy, yes, that's when you do it.
Right.
So,
And most people don't achieve that.
Most people
The
don't.
majority don't.
Yeah. So Sheena, I finally got her to agree, and then we brought on Gianna Furia, who was doing incredible. Both of them are doing great independently. But we started the team because you know as well as I do that in this business, if you're starting out or, people want to put their hand in your pocket.
Right.
You're paying coaches, you're paying
Sure.
fees, whatever the case may be. And I knew that when I first started, I was giving up way too much money. And I didn't want to see that happen to other people. I've always had this protective, doorman, bodyguard, bouncer type nature. And, I made sure that we were looking out for each other. And we operated, for a little while. And then we realized that where we were at wasn't where we wanted to be as a whole. So I went one direction, Sheena stayed, Gianna went in another direction, and, here we all under the same roof once again.
Got it. And then I guess, do you feel as though at this moment a team would ever be a good fit for you again?
I think it could happen. I don't think it's my focus now. I like doing these, these unofficial partnerships.
Right.
Like, for example, Sheena and I, we market in this neighborhood a lot. We're in the local paper. We're on coffee sleeves. We were on billboards. We ran an office we were the face of an office in the neighborhood. I like that dynamic. I don't want to handhold anymore.
Right.
And not that you have to do that with everybody, but it's a possibility. I want to focus on, building an investment, business. I want to focus on building my brand in my business. And look, my daughter's starting college. I don't want to turn around and give time, and ultimately cost myself money.
Yeah.
Right now. I'm not saying in the future. I do enjoy the mentoring aspect of it. I've been fortunate enough, between my last brokerage and current brokerage, I had some really good, people to mentor. And, hungry agents that kind of made it exciting. Like, you knew that you weren't wasting your time.
Yeah.
And that's good to see people grow.
Yeah.
To give back. When I was in the beer business, I hired half of, every River Ward neighborhood. I mean, whether it be Juniata, Kensington, Fishtown, Port Richmond, if they got in the beer business, I was the point person.
Right.
And then I got to hire, obviously, a lot of other people, and that give back and being able to change people's lives in whatever capacities, it's rewarding. And I know that kind of sounds cookie cutter or cheesy, but I mean, look, I've probably hired over 1,000 people in my life.
Wow. Yeah. So you know a thing or two about management.
Yeah.
What do you think overall is the biggest downfall to anyone specifically? Just couple ideas. Is it work ethic? Is it too much going on in personal life? What do you think most people struggle with in terms of their ability to go up professionally?
I mean, look, if you don't, I mean, look, I heard this before, if you don't treat this like a full-time job, you're gonna sink.
Yeah.
If you're too focused on your ego or being a celebrity in this business, where's your business?
Right.
You can only stay at that point and fake it for so long. And I've seen that, in a lot of industries where, people are, they have to be entrepreneurs. You go to a lot of networking meetings and it brings a lot of people from different industries. There's one in particular that I won't mention that, essentially he came on the scene with his own business and, I helped sell his house and he had a lot of money from it. And he blew that. And, wanted to keep up with the Joneses, paying for bar tabs, going to these. And it really hurt him in the long run. I mean, like, family end of it, professional, whole end. So be realistic, make sure that you're putting the work in and treating it like a full-time job.
And I think that's an interesting point, especially when you have to be it's a business before anything.
Yes.
Right? Because at the end of the day, it's all nice to have fun and be social, but if you're not producing for yourself
Yes.
and for your family, it's not fun.
Yeah, and you're going to second this unless you have, somebody who's feeding you leads, a relative that's, or friend that's a lender and whatever the case may be, that is pumping business directly to you.
Right.
You're going to have to work. Like, it's not going to be handed to you.
Yeah.
And
is that one of the things you're drawn to about it?
It is. I love the idea that this is, if you don't put anything into it, you're not going to get anything out of it. You've got to hustle. You've got to work. And, when I was in the union, in the beer business as a, young 20-something, I used to love I would challenge myself. How quick do I get done? How fast can I do this? And I think that's kind of what brought attention to me. And it allowed me that opportunity to advance myself out of that, driving a truck and throwing kegs for a living. And look, the guys who do that for a living long term, I mean, they're tough guys. They work hard. I respect everything about them. But and then getting on the other side of the table, seeing the guys that really were your go-to clutch guys that stepped up and went above and beyond. It bothered me that the guys that didn't do so much or didn't work as hard, that didn't really put in the effort that the other ones would, they would get treated the same.
Yeah.
And that bothered me. And I love the idea of a union. I love it makes sure that people are protected. But the only thing I don't really like about it is that the guy who works the hardest gets paid the same as the guy who works, the least.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And I think that's always been the struggle from union overall.
Yeah.
And trying to keep people motivated and keep things fair so that everything can be done in a certain way. And Philadelphia was built on unions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that. And it provided a lot of opportunity and jobs for a lot of people here. So it's one of those things where.
And look, we live in a union neighborhood. This is a blue collar neighborhood. I mean, cops, firemen, tradesmen. I love it. I mean, they're people that work hard for what they have, and they take care of it for the most part, which is how you keep neighborhoods afloat. Yeah.
So talk to me overall about professional goals. I know that you were named in the Philly Favorites magazine, or was Philly Mags?
Philadelphia Inquirer.
I'm messing it all up.
Realtor.
That was last year.
That was last year.
Right.
We'll see. They announced the results of this year's contest on the 17th of May. So, fingers crossed we can run it back.
Now, I know you aren't someone that does it for the accolades, and I know you're doing this because you want to feed your family and you enjoy what you do and all that good stuff, but the award's kind of nice, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean, look, I had just made the jump to Opus a few months before, and I've known Mark and Volcan for a couple years, not as closely as obviously I did working with them. But, we were on a first-name basis, shaking hands, how you doing? I met with them a couple years ago about recruitment, and, it just didn't go that way. It didn't work out. But, I got here, and, I was only here a couple months. And when that got announced, they were all in. They threw a party. You were there. I mean, we had the mummers. There was catered. There was cigars. There was bourbon. And it was invite whoever you want.
Yeah.
And there we all were. Like it made me feel appreciated. It made me feel good. So the recognition is nice. It's not what you do it for, but it does wonders for your marketing.
Well, and that's another good point. So now that you're here at Opus Elite and this brokerage, even though you are a solo agent and even though you're running your own business, the sense of camaraderie, the sense of support, how much have they helped your business?
I think that, it certainly helped. I mean, if I have ever, I've been doing this, a decent amount of time now. So I like that being here, I don't have to worry about anything other than business. There's no drama. There's no office politics. Everybody kind of gets along with, and if they don't get along, you don't know about it. And that's not the case everywhere. So it's whatever I need, I know I can have support.
Yeah.
We have, the EST, our panel and our community, which is about education, growth. It's all about how do we, as a brokerage, build up our agents, build up our brand, expand, whatever the case may be. But it's all about enrichment. It's all about seeing each other do well. So whatever I need, I know that I can go to Mark and Volcan. It's nice to know I got that support.
Right.
And, I want to be left alone. I want to do my own thing. I love the solitude. I'm very independent, and I feel like I have my legs under me for anything that I want to tackle here. But if I'm not ready or confident in it, I know I got, a resource that will help me with it.
Yeah, and that's I guess at this point that's the most ideal thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a broker jumper. I guess I still technically am.
Licensed junkie, broker jumper.
Yes. And a lot of it comes back to my personality, where I don't sell BS.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my thing. And if you're selling it, I'm going to pick up on it real quick.
Yeah.
So if somebody overpromises and underdelivers or doesn't deliver, okay, well, you just sold our relationship down the river, and good luck, Godspeed. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
and that's it.
important.
It was never anything other than anything malicious. There have been some that I've been at where there's some drama and office politics that I just didn't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
With my background, like, if we're not talking about business or, something to make each other money or build each other up, I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and there's no advantage at that point either.
None. And, it just drowns out everything else.
Right.
Because that's all you hear is drama, politics, all that stuff, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah. And overall, it's hard enough to get up every day and do the activities necessary to bring in business.
Sure.
You don't want the other distractions either.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
that
just
makes
not
a lot
worth
of
it.
sense.
It makes things a lot harder. Then the culture suffers, and it's just not something I want to be a part of.
So talk about the investment side. This is a newer thing for you.
Yeah, I was ready to do this on my own a couple years ago. I just kind of second guessed it. And, the market was a little crazy with the interest rates changing, so I just kind of put it on hold. And Sheena also started talking about it for a while, so we had this idea where, all right, well, we'll keep an eye out, and if the right opportunity presents itself, then maybe it's an endeavor we can tackle together. And the right opportunity came up, and we were like, all right, well, we're going to keep talking about it, or we're just going to get into it. And Sheena was ready to go. I'm a bull in a china shop. Like, if I see something that I want to do, all right, I'm going to do everything I can to get it done.
That's like fresh kicks.
Go.
Like you and I love sneakers, right?
Yes.
Life's too short.
I'm not as
sneakers.
crazy as you. I mean, you've walked into events where your shoes are lighting up the room if the lights are off. So, but no, it was an opportunity that came about, and it's taken years off my life already. But we started running with it. A lot of it was, look, we got a flip going on, and it's the first one for both of us. I've had buy and holds, but this one, it's a good learning curve.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's wanted to kill me at times. I've probably wanted to kill her at times, but I don't look like the interior decorator type.
Right.
But Sheena's girlfriend Sam is fantastic. She's got a vision for everything, and we have this group chat going around where she's not an invested partner, but she's giving direction. Here's what it should look like. Here's what it should look like, and she's sending examples, and I'm not going to go no. Like,
Yeah.
I'm used to a Kensington row home. I don't care. Like,
Anything looks great.
yeah, give me stick-on tiles. I don't care. Yeah, it's not going to sell that way. But
So
no,
what's the goal with this first one? Now that you're taking your licks and learning, and is this something you think you're going to scale, or is it going to supplement real estate itself? Sales,
so I think it's going to supplement.
Right.
I don't ever want to step away from the selling or listing and all that. I really enjoy that. Like I enjoy the interactions. I enjoy helping people. Which is another stock cookie cutter answer. But look, I've been doing that for years in whatever career I'm in. I enjoy that. And I enjoy the competition. I enjoy the negotiation. Anybody that's ever been in a room with me when I'm dealing with a reply to inspection or talking to somebody with a lowball offer or whatever, or even somebody telemarketing, people stop and listen.
Wait, I love how you just drew that parallel. Yeah, it was, you just drew the parallel of a telemarketer to an agent who's negotiating the reply to inspection or something else.
Look, everybody's selling something,
you look
right?
like, so you have a vein coming out of your head right now. It looks like it really peeves you out a little.
I'm not a fan of it. But I enjoy the negotiation, and that's kind of...
Well, but this is the thing, right? I can tell in the short time that I've known you, but now we've interacted enough, that you only going to do things that you want to do. And
Yes.
if it's not feeding your soul, you'll lose interest. And when you lose interest, eventually you'll get into other things. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Is that obvious?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to figure out is, what is it about the daily grind of real estate that's consistently bringing you back? Because it seems to me like the stuff you actually get worked up over is the stuff that's fueling you.
So as I mentioned earlier, like a lot of people have a hard time with having hard conversations.
Yeah, you like them.
I thrive in that.
You like those.
Like I've excelled in that. And
Yeah. So it would have been real estate or school principal.
Yes.
Or jail warden.
Or doorman, like whatever the case may be. But no, I enjoy that because I really have in the beer business, it was second nature to me. I mean, I was, collective bargaining agreements. I sat on the board, negotiating collective bargaining agreements, dealing with union guys, dealing with union agents. So that became very easy to me. So with this, it's like, and with us being in the beer business, every day was different. It was a puzzle that you had to put together every single day. The deliveries varied, your manpower varied, your truck availability, or your logistic availability, it all varied. And you had to get it done every single day. So part of the enjoyment out of that was, I got to figure this out.
Right.
It's not going to be easy.
So what is it that you still feel like you have to prove in this space?
I mean, I don't feel that I got to prove anything to anybody, ever. That's not why I do things. Like, as long as I know that I'm doing my best and I'm proving to myself that, hey, look, I'm capable. I can get this done. Then I'm satisfied. I mean, look, if somebody likes me, somebody doesn't like me, or somebody doesn't approve, I don't care.
No, I just meant overall. It sounds like the challenges in the prior profession is what drew you to it.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're still searching and still reaching for in real estate specifically?
So it's year to year. It's competition with yourself.
Yeah.
It's how do I continue to improve?
Got it.
And, peaks and valleys.
Is that numbers? Is that mainly numbers?
It's numbers, it's
Yeah.
transactions, it's awareness, it's recognition,
Yeah.
it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's whatever is a measuring stick, whatever's the benchmark, however I can exceed last year or continue to get better.
I love that.
Yeah, and look, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you fall flat on your face, but the saying goes, I never lose. I either win or I learn.
So do you think this is out of looking at
I feel like
life?
this is a Tony Robbins conversation.
No, I mean, that's part of the podcast, my friend. Part of the podcast is finding out how people can connect with what they do, and then how it helps them to continue to elevate themselves. And it also explains why they're successful at it, right?
Yeah.
Which is really my whole mantra. See, when people first meet me, they're like superstar, and they think of the guys in the movie, the ding dongs.
Yes, you're smelling. What is it? You're smelling your arm.
Yeah, but
my sister used to watch that all the time.
but what they don't understand is that the reason I chose Superstar is because it's someone who achieves a high level of success in whatever their chosen profession is.
Sure.
And that is something that is actually no bullshit for me. And if you've worked with me, you know that I approach everything of what I do it fun and I do it with laughter, but I'm very high level. And,
I agree.
And that is why.
And look, I've had, we've never actually done a deal together, but like I've sent people your way who have, spoke highly about you.
Yeah. Well, and that is where I think you and I align, is that regardless of anything, our brand, our self-perception, our perception of everyone else, we want it to be at that level, right? And that is why, as much as this is a Tony Robbins thing, to me it's showcasing to everybody why you are so passionate overall in life, because of the fact that you take a deep bite into everything.
And a lot of that comes back to, where I come from. I grew up poor in deep Kensington. It was, 2 blocks from Kensington and Somerset, which is the drug capital, the heroin capital of the world, as everybody gives it the name. It was a tough neighborhood. I mean, you really didn't have a lot. I remember, not having much going to school, getting in the fights because people would start that stuff. And, you had a couple of ways out. And it was, you were going to get a union job. You were, going to be a cop, firefighter, or then you had the flip side to it where, if you didn't go those routes or you weren't one of the few kids that were, destined for college, you went to jail or you got into trouble, and like the neighborhood negative elements really took it out of you. And that happened to a lot of my family. So for me, it was, I'm not going down that road. Like, it's my job to break this cycle, so I'm not going to fail. Like, I don't care. You put me in the middle of a desert, check on me in a week, and I'm going to have a city built. And we're going to have running water. And I'm going to figure it the hell out, whatever it is. And, a lot of that comes from, whether it sounds good or bad, it's spite. Yeah. But the fact that you've been able to harness it and turn it into something positive is a big props to you and the life you lived, and I'm sure the way you teach your own children. And I'm going to end the podcast the way I always like to do, which is it's your funeral and someone's giving a eulogy, and this person, and this is more professional than anything, how would you like someone to remember you in this particular space? How would you like people to say, hey, Russ was X? Dependable. I like that. Somebody that you could rely on. Somebody that really looked out for others. Yeah. And look, we get older, people don't see each other as much. People get families and they get busy, and, you don't socialize enough. So people tend to forget that, or forget, the social aspect of it. And, you got to remind them, hey, look, I'm here. Like, so I do check-ins with people. If, something good happens, something bad happens, I'll reach out, what's going on. Like, a lot of people don't do that, if you're in my circle, if you're at arm's length and we have a relationship, I'm going to defend you. I'm going to be there for you, whatever the case may be. And, we might have our bad days, you might hate me. I mean, look, Sheena and I, an example of that, I've heard that woman tell me, and I'm going to curse. She has gotten out of the car after driving her home. I drove her home and went, you need to get your head out of your ass. And, I talk about her so much whenever I'm doing this or, in a panel or whatever. And, that's what I want. I want somebody who trusts our relationship enough to be able to talk to me that way. Because I don't get it that much. I don't know if it's, tattoos, my size, people tend to say, oh, I thought you were angry and mean, and then you start talking, and then it's like, but like people from afar might see that. Right. So, I want people to know that think that I'm a good person, and that's, I believe that I am, but, I enjoy helping people. That's what I want. I want people to think or remember me for what I was willing to give. I like that. I'm not doing things for recognition. Yeah. I think we sense that. Yeah, as the vein pops out. I'm thinking of telemarketing inspections. Well,
I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. This will be available on our YouTube page at Superstars Podcast, on Instagram as well as Facebook. He is Russell Kuback of Opus Elite Real Estate. We are in Philadelphia, specifically in the Bridesburg section. Please follow me for more stories and interviews with people that are elevating their game and are superstars in their specific industry. I love this man. If you didn't feel this dude's passion and the way he spoke through the mic, I don't know. You must be dead. You must be dead. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again soon on the Superstars Podcast. Russ, thanks, buddy.
Appreciate you having me. Peace.